Have you ever heard of the term tree hugger? For the most part, it's an insult to people who love nature so much that they basically make it their mission to protect it. Never did I think that I would be sitting here talking about a serial killer that had a home filled with leaves or the horrific events that took place at his hands. This might be one of the most savage stories that we've ever covered. It's incredibly difficult to listen to, but I also think that the ending is something that we all need to hear. It shows that there's hope and there's life after your darkest days, and to never let anyone dull your light. Hi guys, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It's so greatly appreciated. It truly, truly is. Before we get started, let me give you my usual disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. Please do not take what I say as fact. Please always do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Next, if you have not liked, subscribed, or commented yet, please consider doing so because it really helps me out and I really, really appreciate it. So, Matthew Hoffman. He was the son of Robert and Patricia Hoffman, and he grew up in the Warren area of Northeast Ohio. For as long as anyone could remember, Matthew loved to go into the woods and climb trees. His mother described him as being smart, having a lot of energy, being headstrong, and rebellious. Other people would come out to say that when they would say even the simplest of statements to him, they would be met with bizarre and weird answers. For example, if you would say something as simple as good morning to him, you would be met with something along the lines of, what's so good about it? In 1997, when Matthew was still a teenager, his parents divorced and he would move to the Mount Vernon area with his mother. He attended East Knox High School, and after graduation, he went on to study industrial electricity at Knox County Career Center. A former neighbor of his said that he always seemed unhappy and very lost. Then in 2000, Hoffman would decide to move to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, where his grandmother lived, and he would get a job as a plumber's helper. He lived in the very inexpensive D-Bar-K motel, which was popular with construction workers, maids, and other service workers. In August of 2000, there was a fire in Unit 7 at Ridge Condominium. The company Matthew Hoffman was working for at the time was hired by the condo's owners to install a garbage disposal for them while they were out of town. While working on the condo, Hoffman began to rummage through the home, collect items that he wanted, and place them in the owner's Suburban. Hoffman had been inside that condo 5 times. He would watch their TV. He would cook food, probably their food. He would cook food in their kitchen, and he would use their jacuzzi. On August 26th of 2000, Hoffman went to Walmart. He purchased 2 gas cans, filled them up, and drove back to the condo. From there, he took the owner's Suburban that was filled with all the stolen goods, drove it to the center of town, and walked back to the condo. His intentions were to pick up the Suburban the following day. He hung out in the condo until the early hours of the morning. Then he poured 10 gallons of gasoline all over the home, lit it on fire, and left. For some reason, he never went back to pick up the stolen goods or the Suburban. In mid-September of that same year, 3 city signs were stolen. For context, these were not small signs. They were very big, very heavy metal and wood signs. Officers were able to track the signs back to the D-Bar-K motel, Unit That's when they learned that Matthew Hoffman was the sole renter of that unit. When Matthew originally filled out the form for the lease agreement, he gave his grandmother's phone number as a contact. So, police call Grandma, asking where Matthew was and how to get in touch with him. Grandma tells them that he moved back to Ohio, but that she would relay the message. 6 days later, Hoffman called back and left a voicemail for Officer DeValve to call him back. When DeValve finally got Hoffman on the phone, he questioned him about the signs. And to his surprise, Hoffman admits that he did indeed steal the signs. When he asked why he would do such a thing, he told him that he wanted the signs as a souvenir. But he left them in Colorado, so it didn't make much sense. Not impressed by his answers, DeValve told Hoffman that he had till September 26th to fly back to Colorado and turn himself in. Going on to tell him that if he failed to show up before this date, a warrant would be issued for his arrest and that he would be extradited back to Colorado. So, on September 26th of 2000, Matthew shows up to the Steamboat Springs Police Department. He sits down for an interview and he admits to stealing the signs using a French truck, and by the end of the interview also admits to setting the condo on fire. November 3rd, 2000, Hoffman pled guilty to all charges and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. He would end up serving 6 of the 8-year sentence, and by 2007, he was back in Ohio to serve his parole requirements. For a while, Hoffman was checking all the boxes. He got a great job at a tree trimming business. He had a new girlfriend who was the mother of an 8-year-old little boy. He bought a home for very cheap because it needed quite a bit of work. And Matthew, his new girlfriend, and her son had all moved in together. Matthew's new neighbor was a mother of 3 by the name Donna Davis. She liked Matthew Hoffman at first. She thought he was a really nice guy, and she even allowed him to drive her daughter around, and she allowed her son to stay over his house. But this wouldn't last long. And by the end of summer of 2010, Donna realized that Hoffman had changed drastically. All of a sudden, his dogs disappeared, and Donna believes wholeheartedly that he killed them, even though there's no proof. He began acting moody and irritable all the time, and his girlfriend would share with her that he had begun setting up squirrel traps in his backyard. He would catch the squirrels, take them back to his house, butcher them, cook them, and eat them. By October of that year, his girlfriend had had enough. I can't believe she lasted till October. She took her son and she left Matthew. She went back there once to grab her things. The two began to argue and Hoffman threw her up against the wall and he began to choke her. When she was able to get herself free, the two started wrestling. He threw her over a chair onto the ground and he began choking her again. This time for about 2 minutes before she was able to get free and get out. Hoffman had also lost his job at the tree trimming business after the owners discovered that he lied about his experience and qualifications, and he never disclosed to them that he was an ex-con. He was now very single, very jobless, and very, very angry. It was at this point that he decided somebody was going to have to pay for his bad choices. Larry and Tina Maynard met when they were just teenagers, and even though they went to separate schools, they did everything that they could to make their young love last. After the two graduated high school, they moved in together, and by 19 years old, Tina was giving birth to the couple's first child, a little girl that they named Sarah. Tina was described as outgoing and popular. She had an infectious laugh, an upbeat personality, and she would light up any room that she walked into. She was fun-loving, caring, and a wonderful mom. She loved dolphins and she loved sunflowers. Her favorite moments in life were when she was cheering on her children. 2 years later, Larry and Tina gave birth to their second child, a little boy that they named Cody. Sarah doted on her new baby brother. She loved him dearly and she always wanted to protect him. Cody was a good student and he loved to play the guitar, and Sarah was an incredible athlete. But a combination of never going to college and becoming parents at such a young age made it incredibly difficult for Larry and Tina to find jobs that made them enough money to raise their family, not properly, but I guess give their children what they felt their children deserved. So Larry decided to take a job as a long-haul truck driver. The pay was great and Larry loved his job, but it would take him away from his family for weeks at a time. And not surprisingly, this took a huge toll on their relationship. Eventually, the cracks in their relationship would become too big to mend, and Tina would decide to move out of the home and take the children with her. By 2005, Larry had married another woman by the name of Tracy, and by 2006, the couple had given birth to their first child together, a little boy that they named AJ. Tina had also begun dating. She was dating a man by the name of Greg Borders. The two met while they were both working at Target stores. A little while into their relationship, Greg, Tina, Sarah, and Cody decide to move to a picturesque town called Apple Valley, known for its fishing, boating, lakes, and beaches. It is located about 50 miles northeast of Columbus. Not only was the new house and the new area beautiful, but Tina would end up getting a new best friend out of the deal. 41-year-old Stephanie Sprang lived 2 doors down from Tina, and the two women would click immediately. Stephanie was the mother of 3. Her oldest son was a teenager at the time. She had a daughter that was a little older than Sarah, and she had a son that was a little younger than Cody. So this is a perfect setup, really. And the kids all got along and they all played together. Stephanie was described as very bubbly and the life of the party. She would light up any room that she walked into. She was always happy, always smiling, and always laughing. Tina got a job at Dairy Queen, close to her new home in Apple Valley. But Greg, on the other hand, kept his job at Target, and he would have to drive 120 miles round trip to work every day. Does Target pay that well? Because, does Target pay that well that it's worth 120-mile round trip to work? Because if it does, then I'm going to work at Target. Saying. Fast forward to November of 2010. The garage door at Tina and Greg's home didn't close all the way, and for some reason, Matthew was privy to this information. So, before we go on, I want to let you guys know that this next part is not the easiest to hear. November 9th, 2010, at around 12 a.m., Matthew parked his car a few miles away at the Gap Trail parking lot. He then walked to a section of the woods across the street from Tina's home, arriving there at approximately 1 a.m., carrying food, water, and a sleeping bag. He would go to sleep and he would wait for all the family members to leave so that he could rob them. November 10th, 2010, 3:40 a.m., the sound of Greg leaving for work wakes him up. But Matthew decides to go back to sleep until the rest of the family members are gone. Sarah and Cody get up, they eat breakfast, and they catch the bus to school. Because Tina and Greg were in the middle of breaking up, she had plans to go apartment hunting later that day with Stephanie. Sometime around 9:30 a.m., Tina left the home to go food shopping and get gas. This was the moment that Matthew would decide to strike. But Tina would show back up to the house sometime after noon, walking in with her groceries and heading towards the kitchen. Matthew was still in the house at the time. So, it is believed that it is then that Matthew grabs her, drags her to the master bedroom, and begins stabbing her. While this is going on, Stephanie Sprang walks into the home because, remember, they had plans to go apartment hunting. It's unknown if Stephanie ran towards Sarah's bedroom or if Hoffman dragged her into Sarah's bedroom, but Sarah's bedroom would be the room that she died in. Stephanie was stabbed twice in the chest, dying almost immediately. However, Hoffman would stab her several more times after she passed. There was blood spattered on the walls and pools of blood in Sarah's bedroom. He then goes back to Tina in the master bedroom many more times, drags her to the bathroom, places her in the bathtub, and begins to dismember her. While all this is going on, the family dog, a miniature pinscher named Tanner, is going nuts. Fearing that his barking may alert neighbors, Hoffman takes the dog into the bathroom and he kills the dog. He places Tina and Tanner into garbage bags, then goes to Sarah's room and begins the same process with Stephanie. He then grabbed motor oil and poured it all over the worst parts of the blood stains, planning to set them on fire. Believing that even if it didn't burn down the house, it would at least burn hot enough to eradicate all of the blood stains and blood trails. Unaware that anything was wrong, Sarah and Cody get off the school bus and they walk inside their home. They start calling for their mom, and that's when they spot Hoffman charging at them. Sarah's able to slip away, run to her bedroom, and shut the door. Cody goes to run outside, but he wouldn't make it in time. And he would end up with the same fate as his mom and Stephanie and the dog. After Cody was gone, Hoffman went to Sarah's room and he began banging on the door. He went in, he grabbed her, he cut the wire from her fan and he tied her hands together. Then he gagged her, he put her over his shoulder, and he brought her down the stairs to the basement. He cut rope from a sled that he found and he tied her feet together. He put a pillowcase over her head, threw her back over his shoulders, brought her back upstairs, and put her on the kitchen floor. After what seemed like hours to Sarah, Hoffman picked her up from the kitchen floor, fixed her blindfold, and placed her in the back of Stephanie's Jeep. Sarah could feel a bunch of bags in the back seat with her, but she didn't know what it was. She would later find out that it was Stephanie, her mother, her dog, and her brother. Hoffman parked the Jeep at a baseball field, warned her not to move, and then walked to where his Toyota Yaris was parked. He drove the Toyota back to the Jeep, picked up Sarah, placed her in the back seat of his car, and took her to his home. Once there, he brought her inside, took her into the bathroom, and removed her blindfold. He placed her on the floor, tied her up, and left the home again. He drove to a nearby Walmart. He picked up garbage bags and blue tarps. He then drove to where the Jeep was. He jumped into the Jeep. He drove the Jeep to a secluded part of the woods, and he dumped the garbage bags, which would be them, inside of a hollowed out tree. From there, he took the Jeep back to Tina's house, dropped off the Walmart bags, and left in Tina's truck. It is believed that he had plans to go back and burn the house down, but this would not end up working out for him. Because Tina's truck kept stalling out, Hoffman decided to abandon the truck and walk back to his Toyota because he feared that if he continued to drive the truck, that he would end up getting pulled over. Meanwhile, back at the house, Sarah begins looking around at a mirage of weird drawings in black paint on the walls of the bathroom. She saw figures of people and animals jumbled together, a dog, a bird, and a man smiling with a yin-yang shirt on. There was also a tree trimming truck and a middle-aged balding man that had the faucet coming directly out of his mouth. The actual faucet. When Hoffman got back to the house, the sun was almost coming up. He walked in and went right to the bathroom to check on Sarah. She decided at that moment that it would be better for her if she befriended him. And let's remember, we're talking about a 13-year-old girl here, which is incredibly intelligent of her. It truly is. Hoffman took Sarah out of the bathroom, this time without her blindfold on. This is when she sees bags and bags and bags and bags and bags and bags of leaves all over the home. Sarah asks, "Why are there so many leaves in the house?" To which he answers, "I use them to keep the house warm, they're insulation." She asks, "Did you break into our house before?" "No." "How did you get to our house?" "I had someone drop me off there." "Did you kill my mom and Cody?" "No." "What did you do to my dog?" "I let it out of the house." This was all clearly a lie. The dog was in the same place as Tina, Stephanie, and Cody. Sarah started to get hungry at this point because she hadn't eaten since lunch that day at school. Now we're going into the next morning. So she asks Hoffman to feed her. He offers to cook her dead squirrel that he had in the freezer. To which she replies, "I'd rather go hungry than eat a squirrel." Same. So he settled on cereal for her, but the milk he gave her was sour, and it would take everything for her to get it down and keep it down. After her meal of cereal and sour milk, Hoffman tied her back up and went to sleep on the couch. When Tina failed to show up for work on November 10th, her boss, Valerie Haythorne, became incredibly concerned. This wasn't like Tina at all, and she knew that Tina and Greg were in the middle of a really bad breakup. So she decided to phone police and ask for a wellness check.
Sheriff Barber's office.
Hi, my name is Valerie Haythorne, and I work at a Dairy Queen. I'm the general manager out there. One of my employees did not show up for work this afternoon at 4 o'clock, which is totally uncharacteristic of her. I'm very concerned about her.
What's her name?
Her name is Tina Herman.
Okay.
I know that she and her boyfriend are splitting up, and he can be a real jerk with her.
When cops went to the house, nobody came to the door. But because they didn't have a concrete reason to enter the home, legally they couldn't. So they just left it as an open case. The following day, November 11th, Tina had once again failed to show up to work. And Sarah and Cody failed to show up to school. Valerie called police to let them know about the children, because now Tina had failed to show up to work twice and the kids failed to show up to school. From there, she phoned Stephanie's boyfriend because she knew that Tina and Stephanie were very close. That's when Stephanie's boyfriend informs her that Stephanie is missing as well. So she phones police again. At this point, Valerie had had enough, and she drove over to Tina's home to meet with Stephanie's boyfriend. Once there, Valerie decides, screw it. Let me do the police job. Let me do the police officer's job, because I guess this is all still not enough. You know, let me not talk shit. Maybe they couldn't go in. But once there, Valerie decides to enter the home through an unlocked window. And what she sees is horrifying. Blood stains and drag marks everywhere. So she phones police again.
Sheriff Barber's office.
Yes, this is Valerie Haythorne. One of my employees did not show up for work this afternoon, which is totally uncharacteristic of her. I'm out of her house now. I just went in her home because I'm so worried about her. There is blood everywhere.
Don't go back in the house.
This time when officers arrive, they're going inside the house. Greg arrives home while the police are still there. This had been his first time back to the house since he left for work the day before. After his shift at Target, he spent the night at a friend's house, then he went golfing all day on the 11th. The only reason he rushed home so quickly was because his mother called him to tell him there is police activity at your home. He was obviously a suspect. He got cleared. Stephanie's boyfriend was a suspect. He got cleared. Valerie was a suspect. She got cleared. Friday, November 12th, officers would catch their first big break in the case. While searching Tina's garage, they would spot a Walmart bag with blue tarps and an open box of garbage bags. They thought to themselves that possibly the person responsible for the mess brought the bags there with them and then left it there. November 13th, 2010, detectives called the Walmart and asked them to get the video footage from the purchase that was found in Tina's garage. Walmart was able to find the purchase, but because it was paid for with cash, it would be incredibly difficult to figure out the name of the person that purchased the items. Detectives followed the cameras to the parking lot where they saw Hoffman get into a silver Toyota Yaris. They cross-referenced all the owners of that type of vehicle in the area, and that's when they hit on Michael Hoffman. When they pulled his picture, it was a perfect match to the person in the video. Back at Hoffman's house, Sarah was tied up in a dark hole in the basement. And even though Hoffman gave her blankets, she was still shivering down there, along with starving, because at this point she hadn't eaten anything since her cereal and spoiled milk. Officers were informed that Matthew had police visit his home on October 24th of 2010 for a DV incident. That would have been the incident that he had with his ex-live-in girlfriend. When officers went to speak to her, she confirmed that Hoffman was indeed living at that residence. November 14th, 2010, officers execute a no-knock search warrant. Officers in SWAT bust down the door, they deploy a flashbang, and they enter. They immediately spotted Hoffman on the couch and they brought him into custody. When they got to the bottom of the basement stairs, they noticed a female laying down on a pile of leaves. When they looked closer, they saw that the woman's hands and feet were bound with rope and duct tape before identifying her as 13-year-old Sarah. The first word she would say to officers after getting released was, "I need to go to school." After officers assured her that she didn't have to go to school that day, she asked them if they had Hoffman and if he would be able to hurt her again. They assured her that he will never be able to hurt her again. It's really sad. After hours and hours and days of interrogations, Hoffman slowly began talking. Prosecutors would agree to take the death penalty off the table as long as he told them where he hid the bodies. He agreed. He promised to tell them where he hid the bodies as long as they promised not to cut down the tree that they were in. They promised not to, then they tore it down anyway after the bodies were recovered, which is what they should have done. Sarah would end up having to leave school after nonstop bullying at the hands of her peers. They would continuously, this is disgusting by the way, they would continuously stuff leaves into her locker. Hoffman would end up being sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. And Sarah would go on to write a book and become a wife and a mother. All right, guys, if you're still here, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you, and I appreciate you so, so, so very much. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you haven't yet and you feel so inclined to. And until next time, stay safe out there.